Welcome to the first OpenBot video tutorial. This tutorial is here to teach you how to actually do proper mapping and to set up the bot so it actually works. This is really here for my own sanity to stop all of the stupid questions that happen in IRC over and over again. It's not to say you're stupid. Yeah, it is to say you're stupid. To actually go on to the fact, there's 3 points I want to make about Interspace, about OpenBot, and about the Interspace community before I even get into this tutorial. The first part is Interspace is not a bot. It is not the bot. It is not a special bot. Interspace is Interspace. It is an operating system which is just like Windows, just like Linux, or any other operating system out there. It is not a bot. It is there for injection of code into other items. So OpenBot is code that is written specifically to use Interspace and to use ISX-WoW. ISX-WoW is the injection method into World of Warcraft. That means that OpenBot is a bot. It is meant for World of Warcraft. Interspace is just Interspace. ISX-WoW is the injection method into World of Warcraft that OpenBot uses. Now, I'm just saying that because I'm tired of people coming in and saying things like, oh, the bot's not working, when it's actually Interspace because of a patch. So if you can't handle these things, don't bother using the bot because I don't want to deal with you. So on to actually doing the video tutorial on how to map, how to run OpenBot. The first thing you're going to need to do is when you actually get OpenBot, after you download it, you're going to install it into the directory. I'm not going to teach you how to install files into the scripts directory. If you can't handle that, that's on your own. After you get it in there, the first thing you want to do is go to www.open-bot.net or .com, go to the forums, go to the routine section, and download a routine for your class. In this case, I have loaded a warrior for a test. It's relatively simple. After you get the warrior routine, which will consist of an ISS file, it'll be called, for example, if you're doing warrior, it'll be called warrior.iss, and then there's also another one, which is warrior.xml. If you do not have these two files inside your scripts OpenBot routines directory, the bot won't work. You'll get all kinds of happy errors. But we have that. So what I'm going to do is open the console, and I'm going to type run OpenBot, you can add the .iss or not. So run OpenBot, and hit enter. Now the first thing it's going to do is open it up, and it's going to scream at you about not having any map files. This is typical for the first time run. That you'll see up here. It's screaming about it. If you scroll up, it's about every zone in the game. This is typical. This is what you're going to expect the first time you ever run it. The next time you run OpenBot, you won't see these error messages. But for this case, I'm running an absolutely clean version, so you're going to see those errors. Now, let's talk about the OpenBot interface real quick. Here are the tab windows. There are several of them: Overview, Inventory, Grind, POIs, Talent, EQ, Human, Config, and Logout. There is specific information inside the Overview. This information is vital, especially when you're asking for any kind of help in IRC. That would be hotspots, which is located here, state, tune, POI, running time, and here is your vital stats about kills, deaths, XP per hour. CPU rating. This is very crucial when you're running your bot. The first thing you want to do is make sure you set it to something that is indicative of what your CPU really is. Now, for this case, I like to run decent CPU so it doesn't actually hog up all my CPU. So after I have that set, the next thing I want to point out is this window down here. This window is all of the text that's going to be happening, everything that the bot's doing, kind of its stateful thinking, things that it's about to do. It's basically the output window. Now, as we can see here by the output window, the first thing you see is just some miscellaneous information. This is what I want to focus on because the entire goal of this is to teach you how to map and map properly. Now, as you can see here, area not found, mapping, add Duratar, big number, XYZ location. Then it says connections to 0 and from 0. That means that we just created a box. The box is around us. We can't actually see it. It's for OpenBot to deal with. Now, this box has no connections to it, which means there are no boxes around it, so there's nothing for it to connect to. This is the first box we've ever created. Now, you don't really need to worry about this entire box or the navigation other than just a few key points. The first one is, as you're running around, if you see this connection as a very low number, i.e. 0 or 1, that means you are not connected to anything else. So if you're running around and you're getting 5s and 6s for connections and then all of a sudden it goes to 0, you need to run back to where you were because you did not connect your previous box to this box. That could be a reason of you jumped off a cliff while you were running, or you ran over a fence and the bot could not detect a connection that is not obstructed to the previous one. So with that said, let's talk about the actual mapping. So the first thing you want to do is when you're mapping is there are several things that you want to remember. When you're running around, you do not run up to the side of a mountain and then jump off the mountain. When you do that, you're building paths or a navigational mesh that the bot actually will be able to use to be able to move. Now, if you jump off a cliff, that tells the bot that there's a potential path to be able to get from point A to point B jumping off the cliff. Now, that's just bad to do. You don't want your bot jumping off cliffs. You don't want it running over crap because that's how it gets stuck. So use some common sense when you run around. Don't jump. If you have to jump, you're doing it wrong. Whenever you're mapping, there is no jumping. There is no running around and jumping around. Now, to talk about the box, again, that is around you, just so there's some information about it. The box actually goes around you in a 5x5 grid, which means you can move slightly left and right and not add another box. You can jump up and down and not add a box because this box basically wraps around you in totality. Now, if I take a step forward, now we see it has built a new one. Area not found mapping, adding Duratar, connection to 1 and from 1. That means it connected the box that it just created to the previous box that was here. Now, as you can see, I can move between these two, and it doesn't build a new box for me. The reason being is because it already knows about the previous box and is connected to it. Now, if I step to the left and build a box here, now it says I have connections to 2 and from 2. That means the box that I put here and the box that I have here. It made a connection to and from this and to and from this area. So the first and second box are connected. The third box is connected to the second box and the first box. So this tells OpenBot that it can run between all three of these areas without being hindered. Now, with that information, we can run around and actually do some real mapping. Now, the first thing you want to do when you're mapping is, like I said, you don't want to run around and do stupid shit. What you want to do is you want to have clear intentions about how you're mapping. The first thing is we want to map and make sure that we get to graveyard. The graveyard is over here. I know this for a fact because, well, I've set up many a path here. Now, the other thing that you need to understand is there are no paths in this game using OpenBot. This is not a breadcrumb bot. This is not for you to set up paths and do anything stupid like that. This is a navigational mesh, which means that it only knows where you've been before. So with that said, notice what I'm doing. I'm just running around the graveyard and I'm watching these connections go up. As you can see, as I'm running around, connections 9, 12, and I'm getting a pretty good mesh here. And I'm making sure that I'm getting the entire area as best I can. Now notice I'm avoiding stepping over things like this. This where I could step over, odds are might cause a problem later on, so I avoid stepping on it. So use some common sense when you're doing it. The next thing is things like this. The torch that's sticking out of the ground. You don't want to run really close to it because there might be a chance you're going to clip on that. So use some common sense when you're running around. So after you've done planning out your graveyard and making sure that you had it fully meshed, so odds are when you die you're going to spawn right here. We know now that we have this entire area mapped out. So in case I spawn here, or I spawn here, or I spawn here, I have a navigational mesh that I can go off of. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to run over here from where I was at the start area. Now the start area, as you can see, there's a big circle that goes around this area. This is a hub. It's really easy considering that everything's going to be done out of this area, out of this place. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run a big circle here just because I want to make sure that I'm giving a nice wide area for the navigational mesh to be able to mesh into. Now I ran in a big circle and I know I came back to the original point not by looking at where I am, but by looking at here. I went from connections of 3 to connection of 8. That means I've now meshed into another area. Now this meshing of another area means that I've made a complete circle or a connection area. Now the other way you can find this out is by clicking on your config tab, then going to rendered map. This brings up a happy little box that has a bunch of little green dots and a big blue dot in the middle. Now this blue dot represents you. The green dots represent boxes. Now remember before, we started off here. And I moved, actually I'm pretty sure we started off here. And I moved forward and I created that box and I moved left. And that was the first 3 that we originally did. Now I ran off in that direction, which is this direction here towards the graveyard, which is these boxes here. And here's the big circle as I was running around. Here's the big circle of me running around. Now as you can see, they don't show lines to connect because that would just take up too much CPU, but you can generally see where things are connected to. Now I personally never use the rendered mapping. It is useless to me. If you choose to use it, that is up to you. So the next thing that we're going to do is we need to start adding or populating points of interest. Those are called POIs. These are represented in Repair, Cell, Mailbox, Innkeeper, Flight Masters, Herbalism, Mining, Spirit Healer, and Trainers. Now, trainers are class specific, i.e. Warrior, Mage, and so on. So the first thing we want to do is we don't worry about it populating those because it's automatically going to populate those. What we want to make sure we have is paths to those places. So now we know that this guy over here is a butcher. He's also a vendor. So we're going to run and make a path over to there. Now notice I ran up this way and I did not run up over here and put me up against the wall. Now I'm going to try to run around things and come to the butcher. Now I don't really need to stop at him. I just need to make sure I ran over him to create a box. And I know that this lady is also a vendor, so I'm going to run past her. And I'm going to run over here to this area right here because I know I need to go in here. Now the reason why I did that is now I created a connection from this general circle that I just made here over to the vendor that's over here, through the vendor over to here. Now I run back into the circle and I've remeshed, as you can see, connection 9 of 9, which means I've come back into this area. Now if my bot's standing here and he wants to get to this guy, he has 2 different ways to get there now. He can go over here to the left through the back end to get to that vendor, or I can run over here and then to the left to get to the vendor. Adding multiple ways to get there is better because you're actually giving the bot more choices to be able to get to places, and this makes the bot look less bot-like. Now, we need to find a warrior trainer. I know specifically he's over here. When you're doing a map, you want to make sure that you get your trainers in there. This is for new players. It does not mean that your maps need to have trainers in them. If they don't have trainers, then you're just not going to go train. If it doesn't have any points of interest, i.e. if it doesn't have any vendors, then it's not going to sell. If it doesn't sell, then basically you're wasting your time in that area. But what we're going to do is we're going to run over here and go to the warrior trainer because we want to just add him. Now I've added a path from here to here. Now remember, I said you can do multiple paths. So I'm going to run over this way and I'm going to remesh into this area here. Now I can tell I remeshed by watching the numbers go up, going from 3 to 5 to 9 to 10. Now I'm going to run in here because I want to get some of the quest mobs into my mapping. Now I ran past that guy because I know he gives me a quest. Now I also want to get a repair vendor in on my map. So if I get damaged, I can actually go automatically repair. I know this guy repairs my gear, so I just ran to him. Now notice I avoided running into things. I avoid running over fire pots. I avoid running over things. It's just stupid, and you're just wasting your time because you're going to create more issues for your map later on. Now I'm going to run back through. Notice it's not adding any points here because I've already gone through here. So it's not going to add points to places it already knows about. Now I've created a place to a graveyard. Oh, I forgot this quest guy here. So I'm going to run through this guy over this way and then through this way. Now, I have a path to get to this guy only through this way. So if I'm standing over by the warrior trainer over here and I want to get to this guy, I have to run here, run around this way, and then run this way to get to him. Or I have to run here, run around this way, and then run this way to him. Now that just doesn't make sense. I want to make this less bot-like looking. So I'm going to kind of run over here to this circle and I'm going to run back to this guy and make sure that I have a way to him from all directions. Now notice I'm not particularly doing anything, I'm just running around. So now we have the major items that we need for a decent map. The first thing is our graveyards. We want to make sure we map out our graveyards. The next one is our trainer. We want to make sure we have a way to get to our trainer. Now mind you, once again I'm going to say we don't need these things to have a viable bot, but they are things that if we have, makes the bot more efficient and makes the bot be able to make better decisions and makes it so we can be less attended. Then I actually got the next part, which is the vendors. These are buy and sell from, and then the repair guy that was in here. That way I don't have to worry about anything. My bot's going to take care of himself. Now, I want to create a hunt area. This is what it's all about here. I want to create a place where my bot's going to go and kill stuff. So to do that, let's take a look at the map. This is an overhead map of where I currently am, which is right here. Now, I know I'm going to be hunting in this area here. And the reason why I'm bringing up overhead map is so I can show you a generalization of how you make a good grind location. Now if we click on the grind tab, we can see that I have a ton of different grinds in here. This is from a previous demo that I was doing. So we're not going to worry about that. We're going to pretend this doesn't exist on yours. So what we're going to do is we're going to come here and we're going to click on location set and we're going to type in a new area. We're going to call it Valley. It doesn't matter what you call them. As you can see, I call some of them like Torn Mills, the general area, and then the level range. And it's up to you how you want to name your items. Don't care how you name it. It doesn't care how you name it. So before you click add and just decide you're going to go do this, you need to know a few things. Number one, location level 1 through 6. That means that you will hunt in this area from levels 1 to level 6. To level 6 does not mean at level 6 you're not going to hunt here anymore. That means you will hunt here until you ding outside of that range. When you hit level 7, this location set will no longer be viable. Now I know Valley of Trials, we don't want to hang out here till level 6. We want to hang out here till level 5. After I ding level 5, I want to move on to a new area. So I'm going to set that to level 4, 1 through 4. So when I ding 5, this area becomes no longer viable. Grind range is set to 200 by default. this is typically a good range. That means from where you are going to target out 200 feet from where you are to look for new mobs. This is very important. The smaller this number, the less you're likely to roam from where you are. So if you want to only run in the specific areas, like really tight areas, and you don't want to go too far off the beaten path, you set this lower. I, by default, always go with range of 200 just because of the way I do my paths. Excuse me, my grind spots. If you want to get more advanced and set that, you can. It's not advisable. The next thing you need to know is pull range is up to you. It's based off of whether your routine can handle it or not. So if your routine cannot handle running around a lot by itself without getting stuck on things, you want to set this a little lower so the bot will actually bring you in closer to the mob. If you want to be at max range to fire off a fireball or something like that, you set it to a larger range. So I know specifically for this, I'm just going to set for 30 and then 90. Then I'm going to click add. Now, you'll see at the list you now have Valley added. Now, over here you'll see the hotspot areas. This is absolutely empty. Make sure you select it here so it's highlighted. If it's not highlighted here, when you go to add hotspots, it's not going to add them. So now back to mapping. Remember before I told you we want to create a navigational mesh, multiple ways into multiple places. So with that said, I want to grind this entire area. To do that, I need to make sure I have a halfway decent mapping of this area. That does not mean I need to map this whole damn area. That means I need to just be able to get to a lot of places. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run a big circle around this area. Now, I'm going to run a circle because it's pretty circular. You can run a square, you can run an oblong, you can run any configuration of a point-to-point connection. That means that there is no such thing as a straight line. There is no single path in OpenBot. Even if you're on a beach and you're only running down, there is not a single path in OpenBot. Remember that. I can't say that enough. There is not a single line from point A to point B in OpenBot. OpenBot is something that makes decisions. Now, with that said, I'm going to do a big circle here, and I'm going to come back and swing back into the back end of the circle. So that means I'm going to start here, I'm going to run around, and I'm going to come back till I connect back into that. So off I go. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm looking to make sure I'm not going to run into anything stupid like the cactus or run off of specific ledges, because this is going to create problems. Now, as you see, as I'm running around, if I scroll back, I had connections 2 of 2, 3 of 3, 2 of 2. Now, 2 of 2 is fine when you're running around. If you get less than 2, you have a problem. You need to go back on the side and remap. If you see here, as I'm reconnecting back, you see this is increasing as I'm running around. So 7, 10. You want to make sure you go back through so you have multiple connections. If you don't have multiple connections, more than 2, you're having a connection problem, and you need to go back and address it right then and there so you don't get this no path to vendor or no path to mob. If you don't do that, you're going to have mapping problems. The other thing is, as I pointed out, running off of the edge of cliffs. This here is iffy. I know for a fact you can run up and down this and it will map it. But in a lot of cases, if you see something like this here, this cliff right here, you don't want to run off of this. Because if you do, odds are you're not going to be able to run back up it. Don't be stupid when you're making your maps. So now, notice there's no rhyme or reason how I'm running. I can go left, I can go right. It doesn't matter as long as I'm making connections. So I'm just going to run around and do a complete circle around this area like I said. Now mind you, I'm going up and down little hills, rolling hills, running through mobs. In some cases, when you're doing this at the higher levels, when these mobs are aggressive, it's better to do it when you're in ghost form, because you can run around without being molested by mobs. The other way to do it is to actually just go and hunt in that area. So you kill along the way as you're doing this manually. Now, the reason why you do that is like me doing it with a hunter, for instance. It doesn't take me long to plow through an area with a hunter manually. So you just plow through, and at that same time, you're actually mapping. You're not running the bot. The bot's not running. It's just running in the background. It's not actively botting for you. Now, I ran you through here so you can see this area. See that little divot there? If you don't avoid things like that, you're going to create yourself problems. I can't stress this enough. So when you're running, make sure you avoid things like that. So now I'm going to run up over here, and I'm going to ignore the mobs just because I know they can't kill me. They're too wuss-like. So now I'm going to run up over here, and I'm going to complete the circle, which this is a half a circle. I've already done a crescent shape so far. So now I'm going to complete the circle. And I'll know when I complete the circle by looking at my connections. Now, mind you, I run a specific UI that just is appeasing to my eyes. If yours doesn't look like that, it's not my problem. You get the general idea of what this is supposed to look like. So now, mind you, I'm not actually running through specific things. I'm just running in a big circle. There's a reason for that, which is a fully meshed map. And I'm going to demonstrate that after I make the circle. So I'm going to run back down here to the road, which is over here. And once I get there, I'm going to complete the circle. And notice it wasn't really a perfect circle, or nothing to the extent of being a perfect circle. Now, see what I did here? I could have ran off here, like most people do, but that's stupid. You run off here, you're going to create yourself problems. I know for a fact I can come down here. Now, notice when I hit the bottom of the hill, I only had 2 connections. That's because it's pretty steep there, and I know this. So I just double-checked by running back up. Made multiple connections here. Now 7 and 9 connections between this area here. So I know that's going to be a good connection area. Now I'm going to come up here over to the road and use points of interest which are visual for you, i.e. roads or something that is static, not a mob, because mobs move, but like for instance this cactus or something like that, so you know where to go back. In this instance, remember the big circle we did over here? That's what I'm going to run back to. So I'm going to run back here down the road, back to the circle. And I'll know when I reach my other boxes because this number will go from 3 to 3 up to a higher number. And now it is 7 of 7, 10 of 10. I know I'm in my circle now. So now I've created a big circle that goes around here. The next thing I want to do is bisect this circle 2 ways, from north to south, east to west. So I create a big plus in the middle of this thing. So if I ever need to get here or here, I don't need, from the graveyard, I don't need to run in a big circle around like WowBot does or any of the breadcrumb bots. I don't need to run back through. I can make a smart decision to actually go up through the center to get there. So what I want to do is I want to run up through the center to the cave, which, if you see here, the cave is north. So I'm going to run up to that cave. And I'm going to keep running until this actually gets bigger, our connection points. The reason being is once the connection points get larger, I know I've crossed over another one of my boxes, or multiple boxes. Now, once again, you do not need to run perfect straight lines. It's better if you don't run perfect straight lines, because that makes the bot look more realistic while it's running. The bot will take the shortest path from any point to any other point. So from point A to point B, it is going to find the shortest amount of boxes it takes to get to a location. So it's not for you to really decide, you know, oh, is this going to be good to run here? Don't worry about it. The bot will take care of it. So now I know I've recrossed into that area, and now I want to get out of here because I just don't want the snot beat out of me. So now I'm going to run back through the same place that I ran through before, and I'm going to run over here. Now mind you, all of this extra pathing is not bad, but it doesn't matter. The more pathing you have, the better your bot, or the better decisions your bot's going to make. But this is not the intention of what we're doing here. We're just doing this to get to another point, and I'll show you why. So I'm running back over here to get to the west side of our circle. The reason being is because now I want to bisect it the other way. I just bisected the circle from south to north. Now I want to do it from west to east. Now I know I've reached my circle because the number has increased. So now I know I'm over here on the west side. Now I want to run over to the east side. Now once I do that, my mapping will be complete. Now this has nothing to do with our hotspots or our grind. This is just a generalization for a mapping of a general area. Now the reason I do this up front before I start dropping hotspots is that way I have some at least initial mapping done. With the initial mapping done, then I can drop my hotspots, and when I do that, I'm ready to go at that point. So I'm going to run from east to west now. Now I can tell when I pass the center, or the center bisect, which is right here, is because once again my connections increase. And then they're going to decrease as I get away from the center back to 3. Now I need to make a decision here. Do I go up this way, which could be slightly dangerous, or go around this way, which is going to be less dangerous? I'm going to choose the safer way to do this. I'm going to run up over here to the left to bisect my circle. Now I'm going to run over here, and now as you can see, my connections have gone up. So now I've bisected it. So now what I've done is I've created a big circle and a big plus in the center. So now from anywhere on our mapping, I can get to where I need to go in a shorter distance. Now I want to go and lay hotspots. So I want to make sure I hunt this entire area. And once again, you don't have to run back through the same place that you were before. The more mapping you have, the better. There is no intention of where you're running. Just run around. Just make sure when you're running around, you don't run off of cliffs or do anything stupid. As long as you maintain that thinking while you're running around, the more you run around, the better your maps are going to be. So now I'm going to run over here, and I'm going to avoid the water or cliffs and make my connection back over here. So now, if you really want to get anal, you can do connections around things. So I know I have a path that goes here. I know I have a path that goes here. I just ran through this way. You can then come over here and make a path over here. Now the bot's going to make smarter decisions when it needs to get around this, which is over here or over here. You don't need to get that intense. If you want to and spend all that time doing that, you can. But you don't have to. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to get ready to set my hotspots. So I'm going to run over here and I'm going to drop a hotspot right here. All you have to do to add a hotspot is make sure that under the grind, your valley, you click add, you have valley highlighted, and then you click add. It's going to add a hotspot. And when it adds a hotspot, you're going to see that it's going to add more connections. It's going to drop the hotspot right at your feet and then connect that hotspot to anything that it can that's in the general area. So I dropped one to the south, which is right here. I'm going to drop one here, here, and here. Now, that's all I need. I only need 4 hotspots to hunt this entire area. You do not need to drop hotspots all over the frickin' place. You don't need to drop them every 5 feet. You don't need to drop them every 50 feet. You can have them long distances in between each other. It doesn't matter. A hotspot is basically a place the bot is going to try to generally get to until it gets there. And along the way, it's going to kill a bunch of stuff. So now I'm going to get over here to this area, and I'm going to drop a hotspot here. And notice I clicked add, and boom. Now I have another hotspot. Now I'm going to run up to the north. Now, once again, as you see, I'm running around and doing this, and it seems like a big chore to do this. But the good news is once you've done this once, that will be with you forever. These maps won't change. They'll only get better. The more you run around in an area, or the more you bot in an area, the smarter your bot's going to get in making its decisions. So as the bot runs around itself, it's going to start adding more connections. And when it does, it's going to make it more intelligent when it's making its decisions to run around. So I'm going to come over here and right at the north of the cave, because I know these guys are good at experience, I'm going to drop one here. Click. Now I have 3 hotspots. Now once again, I'm not following the exact same place. Notice my connections are changing. I'm adding more connections. I'm connecting things to other things. It doesn't matter. Now I'm going to run over here and I'm going to drop the 4th and final hotspot right over by this peon, just because, well, I think he's cool. So there. Now I have my 4 hotspots. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to bot right now. But before I do, I'm going to point out a few more things. We now have a hotspot. But notice, it's not going to work. We are not going to be able to bot right now because you don't have that hotspot active. As you can see here, you have these other hotspots. But the one we're interested in needs to be active. So we're going to click active. You can have multiple ones active at any given time, and it will make the best choice to use which one it wants to. So now I want to make sure that that's active. So our current one is active. Now, to actually get the bot to go, we're going to click go. Now the bot is going to take care of itself. Now the bot is going to kill, it's going to loot, it's going to do all of its stuff. While the bot's doing this, I'm going to point out a few more things to you. Number 1, under the overview, clicking repair and sell will instantly cause him to cease and desist everything other than defending himself and try to at all costs get back to the repair vendor to be able to sell off everything and repair himself. Clicking log out is going to log him out. Clicking train is going to force him to go to the closest trainer of his class to train. Now under inventory, auto sell gray, auto mule. When these things are turned on, the bot takes care of itself. If you have auto sell green set on, when the bot loots any green item, it's going to add it to be sold. So if you have auto sell on and you go to the inventory or the items area, and notice here it's auto sell gray, it's already added bug eye and ragged leather bracer to sell. Now if I click remove on the bug eye, notice it doesn't remove it because it just re-adds it back in. To actually remove anything off of here, you have to make sure that you have that turned off. If you don't have these turned off, you can't manipulate the items here. There are certain different items that you can do. Number 1, you can sell an item. If it's over in this list on the left side, that means the bot doesn't know what to do with it. So that means it doesn't fit any of the criteria. So you just click on it and then say what you want to do with it. You can either sell the item, which next time he gets to a vendor, he's going to sell it. You can keep the item, which means it's just going to keep it in your inventory for all time. Mule will send it to who you have configured in the mule area via mail. You can bank it, which is if you have a banker on your points of interest, i.e. you ran to Ogremar to drop one off, you're going to run all the way back there to drop it off, which is pretty stupid. I've never used it, and if you use it, well, that's on you. You can destroy it out of your inventory. Certain things you don't want to have on you and you don't want to bother selling because you can't sell it, whatever. You can make sure it's destroyed or open, i.e. clamshells. If you have a clam, you want it to open it and loot it and get everything out of the clam so it's not taking up inventory, you can set that to be open. Now notice I'm running around with just 4 hotspots and he's killing everything. The reason being under config, kill mobs in path to next hotspot, which means from point A to point B to point C to point D, he's going to kill anything in his way that fits the level criteria. Now, there are a bunch of other configurations I'm not going to go over. It's up to you. Oh, grats me, ding, level 2. I've now hit level 2. He's going to want to go train, because at level 2, level 4, level 6, it knows that it needs to go train. Now notice how it's running. It's trying to get to the south. Now remember the paths we ran. The reason why we bisected it is it looks like it's running around intelligently. And it was as simple as running a big circle and then doing a plus to it. Now he actually runs like he's actually intending to go to an area instead of backtracking to go to a different place. He's actually going to try the shortest path to get there. So as we can see, he's running to the trainer. We don't have any money to train right now, which is kind of awkward for level 2. Those LUAs are all my fault. That's my UI that causes it. OpenBot doesn't actually do that. So that's the end of this tutorial. And if you got a problem after this with mapping, I don't even know what to tell you. Alright, have a good one.